What's the biggest misconception about healthy people that you see on a day-to-day
day-to-day basis, the biggest misconception is people think they're really healthy when they're eating well and they're exercising some, but really the majority of those people, certainly even in Beverly Hills, are kind of skinny fat. So I think the biggest misconception is that I'm really fit because I look good in clothes. And sadly, that's not true.
Okay, but is that just a function of they don't do the right testing to alert them?
Well, no one does the right testing because doctors don't get reimbursement for doing a body composition. So one or two of the three most important things to know about a person: what's your body composition? How much of you is fat? How much of you is muscle? How much of you is bone? How much water do you have in your system? You don't get reimbursed for that. So crazy people like me just, do it on everybody. I don't care if I don't get paid because, how can you take care of a patient if you don't know that? And the other thing is, what's your VO2 max?
Right.
What's the total ability of you to exercise? And, we write down, you work out 5 hours a week, you do this and that. But at the end of the day, it's like, get on that stupid treadmill. How far can you go? And that really determines what your fitness is.
Right. And I notice things like, and I haven't done one of those in a while with you, but two things. One, you were, I think, cutting edge in that long before we had pre-nouveau scans and those kind of things. I used to tell people when we would compare notes with a friend about your doctors and your physicals. I would come to you every other year. For a while I would go to you every year because I
can't remember. It's probably every other year initially.
But I would explain what it was like to come and get a physical with you. It was like 3 hours, starting with vitals, and then you'd sit there in a gown. And you would come in with a fucking stack of shit of every note you've ever made on a patient. And you would have kind of done a little bit of pre-homework, and you're like, okay. And you would say things to me like, so like 5 years ago, you had a little itchy rash on your finger. Let me see. And you would follow up on everything with history. But then I would wander down the hall and I would get this scan or I would get that test or I had to do body fat analysis and all that. You were doing...
Yeah, we had nutritionists work with you. And
yeah,
it's just now starting to catch on. So it's funny. A lot of the things that we were doing pretty intensely are kind of coming around with some of the current, internet things. And it's all for the better. I think people are getting better healthcare now than they used to 10, 15 years ago. And that's why, on some of these crazy shows that I've been on, when you see the level of care people get around the country, it's just pathetic. It's really sad.
Yeah. Well, and following up on what you just said, the other thing I noticed personally is, as someone who is, I feel generally very fit, especially for my age, you also get maybe a false sense of what your VO2 max is because you're conditioning yourself in a way that you're maybe not challenging yourself in the ways that you should. So, for instance, I'll go do that hill around the corner that we've talked about. The infamous 330 steps, basically, really steep incline. And I'm constantly trying to beat my time. And I'm really out of breath. And if I do a walk, a brisk, I don't run, but if I'm doing a really fast walk of 3 miles, I'm feeling so good. But if I go in and you put me on a treadmill on a certain incline for a certain amount of time, I might be like, shit. This is not what I'm used to. I'm not conditioned for this.
That's how to quantify it and kind of bring it together and compare you to other people your age. Because at the end of the day, we want you to be in the top 2 to 3% of people your age. We don't want you to be fit. We want you to be super fit because even though it falls off and you get the majority of the benefit of exercise after you work out, let's just say the first 3 or 4 hours of the week, every incremental hour up to probably 10 hours, you gain additional benefit. And that's why, if you're in the top 20% of people in the whole country, that's great, but you get better longevity if you're in the top 2%. So we're pushing even super fit people, and they get a little sick of that, when, I start jawing about exercise, but that's always been one of my passions. So, I like to motivate myself sometimes when I talk to other people and try to motivate them along with me.